All right, we're going to start the program again. Thank you all. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. By a show of applause, are you guys enjoying the program so far? Awesome. Awesome. I always like to ask this. I asked this last year too, by a show of applause for the newcomers, the people who've been here, this is your first time. How many of you are enjoying it? We're big on outreach, and we want to reach people who haven't heard this before and who haven't been part of the water community. And thank you for your input. We're going to do something very similar to this next year. And of course, it wouldn't all be made possible without the hard work of our staff, the great work of Fritz, and the people we have involved. I also want to thank our lunch sponsor. It goes without saying. Mesa Water District, thank you very much for the food and the wonderful, wonderful time. You know, as Steve mentioned earlier this morning, this would not be possible without the help of our presenting sponsor, the Disneyland Resort. This is at least, I think it's my 11th time, and it's special to come here every single time. I look forward to it. And thank you again, and thank to Greg Deems, the wonderful banquet staff here at the Grand Californian too. Please, thank you. As you know, Disneyland Resort helps volunteer and make generous donations to many, many great environmental causes throughout Southern California. One of these special events is the Adopt a Channel program. Since we talked about the Santa Ana River, past and future today, we thought we would spend some time highlighting for you this cause that is near and dear to so many at Disney's heart and many of it in the water agency world and here in Orange County. Let's take a minute to watch.
The County of Orange is committed to preserving our precious resources, our environment, beaches, and ocean. Through the county's Flood Control District and Public Works Department, the county operates and maintains over 380 miles of flood control channels. It takes a significant amount of resources and funding to keep these channels, storm drains, and catch basins clean. Over the last decade, public interest in beach, creek, and channel cleanup events has continued to grow in Orange County. Adopt a Channel is an innovative program that brings together our public agency with private businesses and local organizations to make a positive impact in keeping our communities clean and beautiful. By adopting a channel, our community has the opportunity to improve water quality in our channels and creeks, provide a healthier habitat for wildlife, and help ensure our beaches and ocean remain clean.
Our mission is to really protect and improve the health of the watersheds in Orange County. We do that by really leading regional programs, working with partners, other agencies throughout the county to carry out that mission and really helping not just protect the precious water resources we have, but collaborate on ways to improve them and make them better for everyone, really.
I think, any business has to be thinking about longevity, right? Sustainability. And part of that is working with the community around you to make improvements.
We thought that being part of this program is important just for the public perception to know that there are sister agencies along with Orange County Public Works that really do care about making sure that these pieces of infrastructure are well maintained. They look clean and healthy, and to the average person and taxpayer and ratepayer, they understand that we're all working together to make sure that they're safe and that they're clean. There's such great work being done with adopting highways and adopting parks. I think this is sort of the missing piece of that puzzle.
All of us here in Orange County enjoy the beaches. We not only from a recreation standpoint, but from a tourism dollar standpoint, the beaches and the waterways are very important, from fishing, surfing, diving, just enjoying the beach. We need to protect that, and we need to take it seriously. And so if your organization to play just a small part in that, I can't imagine a better use of your team's resources from a volunteering standpoint.
It's not as much of a commitment as I feared at first. So I'm glad to do it. And for me, it's being in my backyard. It means I don't have to drive somewhere to go do a beach pool. I can make a bigger difference here.
So the county pays for the paint, for the gloves, and obviously the trash bags as well. So from a barriers to entry to get into this, the cost is very minimal outside of the human component aspect. Look, we all live here. We want to give back to community. More importantly, we want to make sure that the water is clean, it's safe, and it's taken care of in the right manner.
Before we get into our luncheon program, we'd like to thank NBC4 for facilitating Fritz Coleman's participation today. Let's watch a video promotion for NBC4.
When it comes to forecasting, no one covers SoCal better than this team.
Whether rain, wind, or fire, these forecasting geeks have seen it all.
Fritz is the most accurate weather guy on the planet.
Now we're geeking out over our most innovative technology ever.
4 brand new state-of-the-art radars scanning all of SoCal live.
And all that scientific know-how isn't just for TV.
It also fits in the palm of your hands on the NBC LA app. Who else can deliver this type of coverage? No one.
First alert for you.
Fritz, could you please come up here? Isn't he doing an amazing job? We want to thank him. So, Jeff and I have some tokens of appreciation from the Orange County Water District and the Municipal Water District of Orange County to you to thank you for coming down and putting in. We just are just so blessed to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
You go home with a lot of goodies.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're very welcome.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's my bathroom pass for Star Wars. Yay! Thank you so much. I'll just put this down here. Oh, there we go. Well, every year I take some interesting nuggets back and I try to remember them to pass along to my coworkers, because truthfully, you could probably use this tape and tape this whole event and give it to the media, and it would make all of us that report on various aspects of life in Southern California more aware, and it would make our presentations more three-dimensional, because it's so interesting. Every single year, I really enjoy my participation in this. The lunch session, session number 5, it's going to take significant investments in the research and development of innovative technologies to help us sustain current water supplies, address the challenges of assessing and removing contaminants of emerging concern, and to create new water sources. Joining us today to speak about the new advancements being developed at a university in the heart of our nation's agricultural industry and to moderate our luncheon session is Dr. Joseph Castro. He's the president of California State University at Fresno. Please welcome Dr. Castro. Doctor? Have a great time, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. Right.
Thank you, Fritz. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to extend my appreciation to Fritz for the work that he's done to connect climate change with the extreme weather events that people experience. And before this session, I had an opportunity to watch your Changing Weather Patterns news segment from last September, Fritz, and I thought you explained those complicated issues very effectively. Thank you. Well, I'm pleased to be here today at the invitation of the Orange County Water District, the Municipal Water District of Orange County, and today's luncheon sponsor, Mesa Water District. And I appreciated meeting the good folks here leading those districts. As I prepared for today's session, the experts on my campus at California State University, Fresno, shared with me that Orange County has one of the most sophisticated groundwater management systems in the world, with recharge from natural and highly treated water sources alongside a barrier system to protect against saltwater intrusion. And the work that you are doing around seawater intrusion, in my opinion, is creating the path for many communities that are or will soon be facing this challenge as we struggle through the coming decades of sea level rise. And of course, your districts are setting the pace on new techniques and technologies to minimize urban landscape water use, responding both to new realities and new regulations. This juxtaposition of large and small solutions is the present and future of water management. And through these solutions, you are stretching every drop of water a bit further. Yet with more extreme and unpredictable weather patterns contributing to changes in the quantity and quality of remaining freshwater sources, we must seek new solutions, which requires the adaptation of existing and emerging technologies across disciplines. And we must address the political and practical challenge of climate change denial head-on. There is no solution without acknowledgement of the problem, especially as discussion turns from avoiding climate change toward resiliency in the midst of climate change. The future we are warned about is here, and if we don't act soon, things will get a whole lot worse. I know that you are well aware of that. And that's why I'm excited to hear from our panelists today, who will be introduced a little bit later, but I want to acknowledge them. Professor Jill Farrant, University of Cape Town, who's breaking new ground in resiliency. Willem Swart of the impressively titled Skysource project. And we're grateful to Congressman Lowenthal for his work representing this region and all of California. So why am I here among this distinguished group of people? Well, because California State University Fresno is one of the leading universities on the study of water in the world. Much of our passion and engagement in water comes from Fresno State's close connection to the agriculture of the Central Valley. The valley, as you might know, is known as a salad bowl that feeds the world. You'll likely recognize many of our major products like sun-made raisins or palm wonderful juice or the pistachios that you enjoy. Most of those come from the Central Valley. And Fresno State has always been connected to that agricultural legacy. We were founded in 1911 to train teachers who would teach children of farmers and others who migrated to the valley to work the land. And the region has grown and expanded rapidly since then, and agriculture continues to be a major driver, but it stands alongside a robust and diverse residential and industrial landscape that demands its own share of water resources. Fresno State has expanded to keep pace as our region has grown and diversified. And that includes our very sophisticated and collaborative approach to water. And I believe that our institution is well positioned with faculty and staff engaged in a very deliberate way to take water-related technologies from the conceptual phase to in the ground and on the ground and in the air application. I'll give you just a few examples of that. Our Center for Irrigation Technology is the leading independent testing laboratory and applied research facility for the irrigation industry, and we do all the irrigation controller testing for the EPA. And working in close partnership, we have the Water, Energy, and Technology Center, named the WET Center, and we incubate products that go out into the field, concepts in lab conditions, moving from lab to field, scaling new technology up or down to meet demand, and connecting products to capital, and connecting trusted innovators with trusted industry leaders. The incubator model is not itself groundbreaking, but we're applying this model in a space around water where other universities have not and really cannot compete, at least at this point. So we're perfectly placed to do this work in the agricultural hotspot of the world, yet we still have access to the immense intellectual and financial resources from all around California, including here. And other than end product application, it's getting harder and harder to tell Silicon Valley innovation apart from Central Valley innovation, and we're playing a lot in the same sandbox. So we're an organizing player in initiatives to use big data to ensure water's delivered as needed, in the amounts needed, in the places needed, avoiding the hazards that come from over and under watering, collecting data from multiple inputs, and making scaled adjustments in real time. And if that sounds like your favorite ride-sharing or food delivery app, it should, because we're taking these data-driven ideas and we're applying them in a whole new way. So I think at this point I'd like to transition to our speakers, but I want to encourage you to partner with us. If you're interested, we would love to partner with you in this important space. And we're pioneering a lot of things in the Central Valley that could be of interest here and vice versa. And so with that, I want to mention that one of our luncheon speakers was grounded from flying by her doctor and could not join us in person. But I know she's very much looking forward to participating here. And so through the magic of teleconferencing, we will be able to feature Dr. Jill Farrant, Professor of Molecular and Cell Biology at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. And she'll join us shortly. Also joining us today is Willem Swart, Project Manager of Studio of Environmental Architecture in the Skysource project here on my left, which was the winner of the 2018 X Prize. And the project creates water out of thin air. Yes. And lastly, we will also hear from U.S. Congressman Alan Lowenthal, who has served in the House of Representatives since 2012 and is a member of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. And he will talk about what the federal government is doing to support investments in innovative projects and infrastructure. And as with previous sessions, each of these speakers will present, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask them questions, and their impressive bios are in your program. So let's start the panel here, and I'm going to join our friends. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Farrant, can you hear us?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I can.
There she is. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
I'm really, really sad not to meet you personally. We're very privileged to invite them on.
Thank you. Well, we were going to... Please. Please go ahead. Uh-oh.
It's a climate technology, but here we go. So water, the most important molecule on this planet, without which there would be no life. It is every single organism from bacteria, microbes through to you and I are comprised predominantly of water. All life reactions occur in water, and loss of a small amount of water results in death. You and I are about 70% water. If we lose 1% of that, we will die. But we can, and so can animals, make behavioral adaptations to go and fetch water. Plants can't. They're stuck in the ground and have to rely on the vagaries of nature to supply them with water. Now, 99.9% of angiosperms, that's just a term we use for flowering plants, and all our crops are angiosperms, are able to hold on to their water by resisting its loss or avoiding its loss. But like you and I, they will die if they're forced to lose water. around 1 to about 40%, depending on the species, but for short-term periods only. So extreme resistance to water loss can be found in things like succulents. The panel to the left are all plants that I work on in South Africa, or I have in South Africa. The beast to the right is is a plant that you'll all be very familiar with, one of the largest ever succulents. But it's a very costly strategy to hold on to the water, so they tend to grow extremely slowly. Typical avoidance of water loss can be found in trees and shrubs. I choose to illustrate this with the baobab tree, and what these things do is they send down very deep roots to mine subterranean root supplies, which are then pushed through themselves and over their tissues, themselves wet at all times. Now, the tree I'm illustrating with is my favorite one. It's called the baobab, or also the upside down tree. And the reason why it's called that is because the proportion of roots is so much greater than the proportion of shoots that it looks like it's being planted upside down. And of course, those roots are necessary for the very dry environment that it occurs in. I mean, a very classical avoidance strategy is that we use which we use a lot in agriculture, is that of animals. Again, I'm illustrating from images from my country. This is seen shown up on the west coast of my country for much of the year. It looks a bit like this. When the spring rains, and you get literally a flowering or blooming of the desert. Now, in this strategy, plants grow only during the rainy season. And at the end of that, they produce seed, which is desiccation tolerant. This is a term I'll be using a lot during the course of this talk. But it essentially means that they can lose 95% of their water without dying. Very phenomenal. But in that dry state, these seeds can last, or can survive pretty much anything the environment has to throw at them for prolonged periods of time. And eventually would lie around in the soil, waiting for the next rainy season, after which the whole cycle will start again. Now, this has become essential to our agriculture. In fact, 95% of our food supplies come from animals, all cereals, and in particular, wheat, rice, and maize. Great strategy. In a short amount of time, you get a lot of food calories. These can be stored in the times of need, for plenty, in times of need. But there's a downside to the strategy. Animals inherently don't have much by way of resistance or avoidance characteristics. They simply don't need them. They grow only in a rainy season. Furthermore, some of the green revolution in which we were breeding for increased seed size for grapeseed calories compromised a lot of the resilience traits in these crops. Despite the fact that recently we've again tried to breed them back in, molecular breeding and all the rest, we still find that the cereals die and lost by 20, 45% of their water. And this could happen in about 2 weeks in Africa because of the very extensive heat that accompanies most of our plants. Why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because of climate change. It was noted earlier in today's presentations. This is a slide taken from a study by Guy, who took into consideration all aspects of climate change, amongst them increased aridification due to lack of rainfall. And the areas shown in red are all areas that until recently quite successfully used for agriculture, but no longer possible because of lack of rainfall. This is his prediction for what it's going to look like in 2050. Much of my country, in fact all of my country, much of Africa, pretty much all of your country is going to be in dire straits. Now, I'm concerned particularly for Africa. There are a lot of amazing technologies coming through, and we'll hear about them later. But all of the agriculture in Africa is rain-fed. There's very little irrigation. In fact, there's almost no electricity to drive irrigation. Subsistence farms, where most of the farmers in Africa live on less than $1 a day. And so we're going to have to try and find more resilient crops to grow under these conditions. And while these are just predictions, I'm going to show you a map of my country, taken not so long ago, where the areas in red, essentially of normal rainfall, show very dire conditions. And if you turn on the media, it's peppered with things like droughts are increasing, South Africa grapples with continuous drought. And in fact, up to just recently, we were facing what we call day zero. Day when all water in our city would have run out. And of course, with this comes incredibly bad images. I know that this is real. I have been involved in many of these documentaries. And so it's a scary situation. But there is a solution. And I call them resurrection plants. Plants that appear to resurrect from the dead state, but in fact, they're not dead. They're just extremely dry. Like seeds, they can lose 95% of their cellular water. Like seeds, they can remain in this dry state for long periods of time, and yet revive and continue growing immediately after it rains. So this makes up for this 0.01% of remaining angiosperms in plant species. That accounts to about 135 species. Most of them occur in southern Africa. Now, I work on a whole lot of these, or 6 different varieties of these. You can see them in the hydrated and the dried state here. And the reason for this is, although there are, and I'll show this later, similarities in the mechanisms they use to tolerate what is dried, there are differences, species-related differences, anatomical differences amongst them. And so I have a species for each of the major crops that I would like to make little drought tolerance. And the model species, actually. So here they are. These 3 species, highlighted in orange, all xerophyta species, are my models to make drought tolerance cereals, especially maize. It's a staple crop in Africa, but also feed to mice. Erythrastus landensis is a little grass. It is the only resurrection plant that actually has a first relative that's already a crop. It's an orphan crop called Ph.D. If you've eaten an Ethiopian restaurant, you will definitely know what it is like. You will have eaten this because the injured breads that you eat is made of teff. Now, teff is a close relative. Erythrastus landensis, our resurrection grass. And it is quite resilient. It loses about 25% of its water before it dies, but it's still not tolerant enough to get through our extreme droughts. So Ethiopia, where it is largely grown, not only as a dominant fodder for its seed. 75% of their diet comprises teff seed. And recent analysis is highly nutritious, but also gluten-free, so has recently been called a super. Now, I'm particularly interested in working with crops that are grown in Africa, are loved by African farmers, and teff is one of those. Going back to these species, species Xerophyta characteristic of Lowenthal, and I work on a number of characteristic species, is my model for making drought tolerant legumes. Now, plants do not make a lot of protein, but the highest levels you're going to find is in the bean seed, in the legume or pulse. And because African farmers are often resource limited, they cannot afford some of the proteins that come from livestock. So it's important that we try and improve protein in the diet by the plant. Here I'm working on something called bambara beans. Those in the scientific literature is Vigna subterranea, another orphan crop prized in Africa. Which leaves this little species here, and I was going to tell you a little bit more about it. It's not a model for drought tolerance, it's a model for cosmetics and medicinal products. I want to cut my talk a bit short, so I'm going to move on. If you want to read about it, this year's edition of Nature has an article. So in order to understand what is necessary for drought tolerance, or for improved drought tolerance, I've undertaken what we call a systems biology approach, to look at multiple ways of understanding this phenomenon, and then to be able to choose the most meaningful ones for drought tolerant crops. In this approach, I look at everything from changes in the cell anatomy, the ultrastructure, the transcriptome, is a fancy term for the genes that switched on and off during desiccation. Proteome, which proteins are made in response to drying. This is important. They're the workhorses of the cell. There's a lot of regulation happening between the transcripts and the proteins. Look at the metabolome. These are the chemicals made on drying. Really important, as I said, plants are stuck in the ground. They use what I call a highly tuned chemical arsenal to prevent all the stresses, both biotic and abiotic, from killing them. Part of the metabolome is looking at the lipidome, the lipids associated with drying. I think this is a category that is really important to understand membranes. Lipids are the main compartment of membranes, and simply lipids also form signals to turn on genes. And finally, not least, I've worked at the genomes because the technology is becoming a lot more sophisticated and affordable, but in fact not really affordable for a South African scientist. I collaborate widely, particularly with Professor Henk Hills from the Wageningen University of Research in the Netherlands. And what we've been able to do by the genome is looking at the genome is to understand the regulation of all these processes by comparing among them to ask the question, is there a signature of desiccation tolerance amongst resurrection plants? Do we use physiological and biochemical studies to understand how these protectants against extreme water loss function, and how that in turn helps them cope with their environment? Along the way, simply because it is a race against time, we have indulged in what we like to call a conventional biotechnology approach. Conventional because it's a bit of old news nowadays, used quite a lot formerly, in which genes, for example, from a resurrection plant, one species is put into a crop and then tested for improved drought tolerance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done here, but I'm not convinced that putting 1 or 2 genes, or even 3 or 4 in, is going to give an extremely drought-tolerant phenotype. So our final approach, and about to embark on this approach, again, collaborators, is to switch on whole and off whole suites of genes. And the analogy I draw here is by finding master switches that will control important suites of genes that are required for extreme root loss. And the technologies used here are something, the predominant one at the moment, newly come out is CRISPR-Cas. And I'll get to that at the end of my talk. But starting first with conventional approaches. Now, in order to tell you what we've done, I need to tell you a little bit about antioxidants. Oxygen, one of the most important molecules for our survival on this planet, is also extremely dangerous, readily forms what we call reactive oxygen species. Now, for a free radical. Now, the definition of a free radical is an atom or pair of atoms with unpaired electrons. They are highly reactive, so it will bind to proteins, nucleic acids, and all sorts of molecules important for life, damaging them irreparably. And an antioxidant is basically something which can stop oxygen-free radicals, which are prevalent in our atmosphere at all times, but these ones are particularly important or are a normal part of everyday plant metabolism. Our photosynthesis, again, and I know I'm full of hyperbole, is probably one of the most important metabolic reactions on this planet, without which we would not survive. It's the only process, apart from in a few bacteria, in which energy from the sun, high energy electrons, absorbed by molecules of chlorophyll that makes the leaf green, and that energy is used to convert water, carbon dioxide, into oxygen, or to rust, carbohydrates, which help plants grow, and of course give us our food. Now, this process is highly prone to reactive oxygen species as just a normal part of the metabolism. High energy electrons have been dealt with here. And the little cartoon I'm showing here indicate 3 places in the photosynthetic apparatus where these free radicals form. And in the very first instance, it's in the very first reaction here when chlorophyll absorbs light energy. Second time a free radical forms is when water gets involved, and the third time is in the Maillard reaction, the reduction of something called pyridoxine. Now these two, and I'm not sure if you can see, folks, I didn't mean to do that. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Are we back live? Okay, so these two processes, the first 2 that you see coming up now, chlorophyll and splitting of water, particularly the absorption by chlorophyll, is highly dangerous because chlorophyll will absorb light energy regardless of if water is present or not, and because it passes its electrons onto water, the absence of water causes these things to go out of control. And most people working in the field say that this is the major form of crop loss. And I concur. Now, resurrection plants are able to do enormous, incredible things to actually prevent the initial formation of these reactive oxygen species. But they also are able to mop all of them, the remaining ones up, by use of very powerful antioxidants. Now they use what I call universal antioxidants. Those are the ones that every plant will use. And unusual antioxidants, things like phytochemicals, which normally don't occur in our plants and breed them out, so they taste bad. But also enzymes that are never active in leaf tissues, but are in seeds. And where I'm getting to that is we have used an enzyme, seed on the resurrection plant, and inserted this into maize. Now, to explain how we did it, I have to tell you a little bit more about our conventional approaches. I think you probably all know that genes are made of DNA, which are wound very tightly onto chromosomes. If you unwind this DNA strand, it's a helix, you find that there's an initial region called the promoter region, which switches on the next gene coding region, that's the important region. And then there's a terminator, which actually switches off that gene, and basically indicates this is the end of this gene, the beginning of the next gene. Promoters are not simple on-off switches. Plants have to have a number of things in place for that gene to be switched on, to be switched off. So what we do is we use what we call a constitutive or an inducible promoter, ones that we know are hard to switch on or are on all the time. Couple that to a gene of interest and put that into a crop. What we've done now, and I'm part of the gene discovery and not the actual biotech. I'll introduce the collaborators then now. What we've done is taken a drought-induced promoter. So the plant itself determines at which water content to switch the genes on. Putting that to an antioxidant gene and put that into maize. Now the plants to the left of the arrow, or the red line, do not have the gene, and the plants to the right of the arrow do. The collaborators are in the picture there, so Hal Rafferty particularly, part of my group, Chef Congressman is retired. Now, underwater stress, plants without the gene and water for 3 weeks do not do really well. Those with the gene look actually quite healthy. In fact, this is true. You can continue to do not to them, but they will eventually die if it is a particularly hot and long drought, 3 to 4 weeks. So I beg your pardon, 4 to 5 weeks. What about the next approach? Finding the master switch. Now this requires a lot of intense investigation, both genomes and transcriptomes, and comparing amongst resurrection plants. I don't have the time to explain how we got there. My collaborators and myself, and in fact increasingly other people working on resurrection plants around the world, find that there's a very strong seed signature in the genes that are associated with desiccation tolerance in resurrection plants. These are some of the papers which express that opinion. What do we mean by this? We mean that we're finding genes that are normally only switched on in seeds during desiccation tolerance are switched on and off in resurrection plants. Now, what relevance is this? What is the implications behind this? If we assume every single crop, and we do know that every single of our food crop produces desiccation tolerant seeds, in my model, I'm showing the on-off switch of all the genes presumably associated with desiccation tolerance on the chromosome below the switch, blue when it's on, brown, black when it's off. Now, these genes are switched on in seeds in every single crop, and never in the leaves and the roots. Resurrection plants, on the other hand, switch these genes on in their leaves and their roots. Now, what we try to do by understanding what are the signals and how these genes are switched on and off is to mimic that in crops, and therefore under drought conditions help them to assume the desiccation tolerant phenotype. Now I would normally show a time-lapse video of resurrection plants rehydrating during my talk. I think I've got a bit of time to do that. So at the end of my talk, I'm going to show you these 3 species in that sequence rehydrating after them dry for 6 months. There's a climax at the bottom, so you can see how quickly this actually happens. But when you do so, just imagine what it would be like if your favorite field of corn or plants have had a long drought and then we get rain. This one's extremely quick, 12 hours. multiple legume model, 16 months. No book is complete without actually acknowledging my financial donors or assistants that I have achieved, and more importantly, very importantly, students and collaborators, too many to mention my name, who have helped me over the last 25 years. My plants and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Farrant. We're going to have our next two speakers go next, and then we'll have Dr. Farrant join us for the panel discussion. So we'll next go to Willem Swart. Thank you, Willem, for being here.
Thank you. Got this check. I have to apologize in advance that my animations aren't as cool as the time lapse of plants clapping, so you'll have to bear with me. Thank you all for having me here. It's a real privilege to represent Skysource in the studio of environmental architecture. If you're here today, I'm sure you know that and you've been paying attention obviously, we can't take water for granted in the 21st century. The changes happening to our planet will affect the supply and variability of our resources. So it's critically important that we understand that redundancy is necessary for resiliency. We need both top-down, robust, centralized networks for distribution and infrastructure, and as well as, which is what my firm does, kind of bottom-up, decentralized environmental systems for homeowners, businesses, and local communities. Here you see the Sail House, which is one of our projects in the Caribbean. It's a bed and breakfast that produces all of its water off-grid and on-site, and it does this through these kind of graceful tensile fabric roof membranes that collect rainwater and direct it into cisterns below each of the buildings. It's an example of architectural form and function aligned in response to an environmental condition as well as very specific occupant needs, and that'll be finished at the end of this year. However, this is a rather bespoke solution for a very specific context. And as we've moved forward with our work, we've begun to realize we need to look at sustainability really at the intersection of multiple resources, particularly water, food, and energy, because a threat to any of those things really destabilizes all of them. So it's our job to develop really circular economies that create value for everyone and strengthen each other instead of the linear waste use streams we have today. That's really the guiding ethos behind the We Do. That's our Water Abundance X Prize, Grand Prize winning technology. We bested almost 100 international teams, and we were the only ones to actually successfully produce 2,000 liters of water in the 24-hour testing cycle at a cost of less than 2 cents per liter using only renewable power. So everybody was working towards this goal of atmospheric water generation, which really just means wringing humidity out of the air and making drinking water out of that. The main limitation, however, is climate. Obviously, if you're in a dry area, there's no water in the air to consume. That's pretty hard for us down here in Southern California, as I'm sure you all know. So our innovation, we were the only team to make our own climate, and we did that by extracting the water out of green waste, out of biomass. Essentially, the way it works is the biomass goes into a biomass gasifier. It gets vaporized. That produces energy as well as hot, humid exhaust vapor that can be condensed into water and can be used for cooling and heating as well. And the interesting thing about green waste and biomass is it's produced abundantly as byproducts of the industrial and agricultural sectors, like walnut shells, for instance. But it's also occurring in previously unknown frequencies in the natural world because of climate change. So you could think of dead trees that are arising and multiplying in forests due to beetles and other invasive species following the changing temperatures. And if we do nothing with the green waste, it decomposes, it degrades, and then it enters the carbon cycle. It becomes a greenhouse gas. That just compounds the problem, becomes this runaway effect. Our system actually sequesters the carbon by, we remove the water content from it, and what you get is charcoal, essentially, biochar. And biochar can be buried in the ground mixed with fertilizer and soil for better crop yields, while removing the carbon from the cycle for hundreds of years. So in that way, it's helping mitigate climate change while also producing water and other useful things for people at the same time. In addition to this kind of technical systems diagram we're considering, we're also very serious about looking at the broader socioeconomic implications of this technology globally and what that means for the communities it would be deployed in, particularly the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Prominent among this would be kind of like issues of water equity. So, for instance, the WEDO could form the kind of center point for a new economy based on a wood for water exchange, when people bring the biomass, which has very little use to them otherwise, and trade it in for water. And that's important, especially in the developing world, because particularly women and girls waste a lot of hours per day going to wells, which are increasingly further away. And that's all lost economic time, that they're not working, making value for the families or even going to school. And that's lost economic time for their countries because they're not able to contribute to the growth of their economies. And so to get WEDO to more places in the world, we've since refined what was kind of one heavy shipping container prototype and evolved it into a system of discrete kind of micro cubes that can be reconfigured and plug into each other, basically be adapted to whatever the local circumstances are. Sometimes people need water more than energy, or they actually need refrigeration for crops, and basically with this kind of plug and play model, you can create the WEDO unit that's right for you. So it's more of a methodology than any specific product. And so we're thinking about this in terms of swarming. In some areas, say a natural disaster, or like say a hurricane in this case, takes out an island in a chain. Well, WEDO units would be deployed at multiple locations, kind of redundancy, but helping those local communities with their day-to-day needs. And then in the event of a disaster, they could all swarm and the fleet would be deployed to that location and provide immediately response to help them regenerate and rebuild. And so we're looking at, I think the particular relevance right now is this concept of natural disasters, because we're dealing with so many chaotic weather events, even in California with wildfires, and that earthquake I keep hearing about, but hasn't happened yet. And there's kind of a problem and an opportunity in that it's the biomass that's lying around that's just the kindling for these fires. And so we envision a scenario in which we could incentivize brush clearance early by creating an immediate value to collecting it, because you could get water or energy out of that. Otherwise, it's a lot easier for people to keep kicking the can down the road until they have an immediate need. And so we have a unit at our R&D facility, which is coincidentally in the epicenter of the Woolsey fire burn area. we're working with the neighbors to create like a microgrid that's partitioned off from the circuit coming off of PCH because of the topography and the remoteness of areas in the urban wildland interface. It's critically important for these communities to be self-sufficient, be able to depend on themselves. So it's really like an experiment in kind of local community building and resilience strengthening. And in a kind of opposite urban context, we're looking at a pilot project in South Central LA, and it's establishing a We Do unit with the help of Community Healing Gardens and the Flow Project, which would operate as a resilience hub. At this location at Markham Middle School, we chose because it's an educational institution which are going to be increasingly important to building resilience in communities, but it's also in the middle of high density of project housing. So these are low-income people who are often disregarded when emergencies hit, and it's also a food desert. So day to day, the We Do unit would provide water for the local community garden, and it's important to have establish these kind of local urban farms in these areas, so people can be self-sufficient, but also they can just get the actual good food they require. And then We Do can become a site for students and even the public to see systems thinking and sustainability in practice and get some tangible takeaways from that. And in the event of a disaster, it would be there for the community to coalesce around and get emergency water and power, charge cell phones in a place where first responders and government officials and people could organize around. So climate change, it can be overwhelming at times, but I think it's important to not be pessimistic about it. This concept, anti-fragility, refers to systems and organisms in nature that actually grow stronger with stress. So you might think of this stick figure tree kind of bending with the wind and growing stronger against that, or even going to the gym and getting buff after your muscles are sore. Essentially, I think climate change is a similar stressor, and it's an opportunity for society to not give up, but to develop new systems for resilience and sustainability in response to our changing environment, and find like a new equilibrium between the built, natural, and human worlds. So, thank you.
Thank you, Willem, for stretching our minds there. I appreciate it very much. And last but certainly not least is our distinguished Congressman Lowenthal, who's with us here today. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this important topic.
Yes, I never thought, I never thought when I went to Congress that water would become my predominant issue. I wasn't an expert in it, and I'll just share a little bit. I'm Alan Lowenthal. I represent the 47th Congressional District. Very interesting district. It goes from northern and western Orange County, about 45% of my district, and 55% of my district goes from the island of Catalina through Long Beach and into Orange County. Very interesting issues. When I first was elected, I spent a lot of time in Catalina because we were going through a drought. I represented Catalina also prior in the state legislature, and Catalina has no water. No water. Their reservoir was just about dry. They had one little reservoir, didn't really handle very much. It was in 50%, I think, water reduction. They have salt water in their bathrooms, in their toilets, because they don't have any fresh water. And all the hotels and all the restaurants had to either clean their dishes or all their linens by shipping them back to the mainland and coming back. Not a situation that we have. would like to have. And so certainly a crisis there. Finally got a small desalination plant to handle the other desalination plant, which is kind of a rickety old one. It kind of got us through the drought. So that's one issue that I dealt with. Second issue is I'm elected in 2012. And my mind was blown when all of a sudden, after representing LA, Long Beach really, in the state Senate and the state assembly, and then representing half my district now being Orange County because of the redistricting commission, which is great that California has an independent redistricting commission, completely independent of this, but we don't have all the gerrymandering that other states have, and we can be very thankful for that. But when I came here and I really spent time with the OC Water District and the Sanitation District, my mind was blown by the recycling, the reuse, and the recharging of our groundwater that's done here. Not a drop is lost, basically, in Orange County in terms of that. This is nowhere else in the nation. Everybody is now going to try to catch up, but we really should be proud of ourselves here in Orange County. And I will tell you, every place I go, every chance that I get, I brag about Orange County and what they do for water, because it should be the model of what the nation does, and that really should be the model, because we've heard about, innovation that's taking place. It's wonderful, but really we've got to also get back to basics and save every single drop of water. It is precious, and so that's why I'm here also. And I also think that the projects that we're talking about, and I'll kind of sit down in just a few minutes because I just want to kind of lay out, are very expensive projects. Let's be honest. We're talking about in terms of, we're going to be doing hopefully an infrastructure package, but we're talking about the water infrastructure it is the critical package for the nation. I'll kind of say a little side note. The last 3 weeks, I've been through an amazing experience. 3 weeks ago, I was invited, I'm part of this group, we're trying to figure out how do we become more bipartisan in Congress, and I'm kind of a liberal Dem, and I joined with this group to have a more conservative Republican, and we spent time in each other's district. And I just got back from Louisiana, which produces much of the federal oil, and so I'm going to be down there complaining about, how we need to kind of get off oil and gas and move towards renewables. But I also really appreciated what they're going through, that because of flood control and really not preserving the land and not using the sediments in a natural way, the whole southern part of Louisiana is lost. There is no southern Louisiana basically anymore. It's all underwater. And it's a shock. It's a shock to the system to see this happening and how because of our activities, we're not able to replenish it. It's always been a battle between the water and the land in Louisiana, but with the tremendous flooding that's occurring, it's unbelievable what's going on there. And I just returned this week, and just a couple of days ago, from visiting the Midwest because of water issues. Again, I was there, and I have to tell you, I just left Lawrence, Kansas, tornadoes happening, flooding going on. The entire Midwest is underwater, really. And that's not water that we're going to be able to recycle and reuse. This is a tremendous problem that the nation is going through, whether it's the tremendous changes in climate or the extremes, which it is much of it because of climate change, but other reasons. The protection and the use of water is just critically important in how we protect our communities. Just want to say the federal government should be a partner in all, just like what's going on in Orange County. We need to do that throughout the nation. I'm a co-sponsor of the legislation. I also serve on the Natural Resources Committee, and I'm on the Water Oceans and Wildlife, what we call the WOW subcommittee, and I'm also on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and I'm on the Water Resources Committee there. So I didn't know that all my time was going to be spent either visiting places or talking about water. And again, I'm going to just say, I am so proud of Orange County, and I can say it again, and it really is the model for the nation. But we need to be able to, when we're talking about loans and grants, the federal government needs to be a partner. That's all I'll kind of end with. We have to be the partner to help provide innovative grants to states to develop their infrastructure so that other communities. We have to make sure that we provide low interest loans. We wouldn't have Orange County doing what it is done without low interest loans that could be repaid over time, because we save money by doing it, and it's really an investment in the future. Ultimately, when we do this large investments throughout the country, it saves money and it can pay for itself. But the upfront costs of what we're going to be talking about really mean that we really need partnerships to work together. So I'll talk to you about some of that legislation. It's, who knows, with this kind of climate that we're going through, not only the environmental issues, climate, but the political climate also. Who knows whether we're going to get it through this session or not? But it is, to me, water is the critical issue that the Congress is confronting now. And I'm just really here to answer any of the specific questions when you have questions. And thank you, Orange County, again.
Thank you, Congressman Lowenthal, for your leadership on these very important issues all across the country.
Yes.
And I want to thank all the panelists for their presentations. Let me check in. Dr. Farrant, are you still with us?
I am indeed. Hi.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to do a Q&A session now, and why don't we start with you? What success, if any, have you had in applying your research to farmers on a larger scale, or say produce that has a large consumer base? If there isn't any real world application yet, how far along are we, and or what is it going to take to get to that next step?
Great question, thanks very much. No, we haven't what I call commercialized or extended this research out into the field yet. With the first example I gave you, with the antioxidant gene, we finally got funding to actually take this to the multiplication stage, and after that there's an extensive field trial. So that alone will take 5 to 10 years because of all the regulations required to genetically modify crops. With the other approach, again, it will probably take, and here funding is the greatest issue. It takes a lot of time to get to proof of concept, and with that a lot of money. And not many people want to put a risk into something that might not work out. So I'm hoping sooner rather than later, but I cannot say anything much more before 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. Willem, similar question to you. What's on the horizon for using this technology that you've talked about today on a larger scale, and how much real-world application of this technology is going on? How far along are you, and or what is it going to take to get to that next step?
Well, since winning the X Prize, that organization has actually been helping us, productize this year, since last year was all about prototyping.
Yes.
I'm the director of our think tank in the studio, the Resilience Lab, and that's really become the body working on not only we do, but other techniques for like fire preventative soil and other things, to have a whole comprehensive view of resiliency, particularly in the urban-wildland interface. With regards to WeDo specifically, I think the idea of a resilience hub has a lot of practical value to communities that are either rural or urban. Mm-hmm. And this year I think is going to be a lot about finding partnerships with institutions, but also even city governments who are all, it seems like it's the year of resilience plans, so we're aptly named, I guess.
Yeah, great. Exciting opportunities. And Congressman Lowenthal, I know you and your colleague, Congresswoman Grace Napolitano, have advocated for changes to the existing Title 16 program for water use and desalination projects. Can you share with us some about the movement in that direction?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on all the background to it, but I believe the Bureau of Reclamation is really developed for water projects in the western 17 states. The money comes from some of our energy extraction on federal lands, which funds a number of things, but including the Bureau of Reclamation. And right now, the Bureau provides in a competitive grant process, $50 million for competitive grants for innovative water projects. That's recycling, reuse, discharge, everything that's going on right here in Orange County. We propose to do it, and I'm one of the co-sponsors, raising that from $50 million a year to $500 million a year, and also having a reauthorization, permanent reauthorization, so that we don't have to go through this every couple of years. It's now, I still believe in the Natural Resources Committee, which has jurisdiction over these kinds of water projects. We only have 26 co-sponsors at this moment as of today. We need a lot more. We're going to go back and advocate for a lot more to let leadership know that there is the desire for that. And so it's really anybody who knows any other Congress members who are not, especially in Orange County and throughout California, get on them to become a co-sponsor on this bill. I'm not sure, unless we get this groundswell, we're in a place where we only tend to deal with crises. And really what we're talking about, we as a nation to survive and to flourish are going to need to make major investments in our economy. And this is one of the major investments. And so that's where we are. It's still sitting in committee. We need to get it out of committee. We need to have many more people become a co-sponsor.
Thank you, Congressman. Maybe a follow-up to that. I know some members of Congress view these projects as being free money and don't support them. How do you see that evolving in terms of the future of federal money, grant money versus loans, and do you think earmarks might make a comeback in this area?
The earmark question is a kind of, let me start with that and then kind of come back to what is the future. I believe the Senate just passed a motion also not to come back to earmarks. And so I think it's highly unlikely, especially in the near future, that we're going to have earmarks. And I'm sure that there were examples in the past, and there were. They got rid of earmarks before I arrived in Congress, so I can't talk really as someone who experienced them and what it was like. But earmarks, there's a possibility, and it has occurred, to have abuses in the system where projects are identified by certain members of Congress who are fairly powerful. They get identified and they get into the budget and they get passed. However, having said that, we have lost the bipartisanship in the United States Congress because of the absence of earmarks. What do I mean by that? Lots of people, all politics is really local. And if you can go back to your district and say, I've helped to fund that water project in the district that came from the community, it tended to get people who normally would not, in a bipartisan way, work together because they felt like we're getting something for their district. So it's a trade-off. I don't see it coming back. But I also I worry that we don't have a way of kind of eliminating the partisanship that's in there. That today, because there's little reason for people to kind of fight it or buck it because they don't feel like they're getting anything for their district. They're just kind of following the national role. The other question I think that you said is, what do I think about when there are certain representatives who say this is a giveaway to have grants or to have loans? They're just really not the role of the government. I totally disagree. I think the federal government should not impose those projects on people, should not really be the ultimate decider, but the federal government has to have a partnership between the states and the local governments, and so I disagree. Right now we have the state, I think the state revolving fund, which is funded from the federal government to the states. We would not have what we have here in Orange County if the federal government had not been a partner to do that. So to walk away from these partnerships, to walk away from federal support, will be in a long-term disaster for the nation.
Thank you, Congressman. Fritz, do we have time for any questions from the audience?
Sure, I think so.
One or two? Are there any questions from the audience today for any of our speakers? Okay.
No question.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Dr. Farrant, Willem, Congressman Lowenthal for being here today.
Excellent, excellent topic, gentlemen, and Doctor, we just appreciate it so very much. Please, another round of applause for Dr. Castro and all of our luncheon speakers. Willem, Congressman, thank you very much. On behalf of the Orange County Water Summit Committee, we thank you. We thank all of our sponsors, all of our speakers, and to you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Please be safe. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being here.